Never forget when Saruman told Gandalf, "You've been smoking too much weed, bro. Your love of the halfling's leaf has clearly slowed your mind." Why didn't they take the eagles to Mordor? The Fellowship can't ride eagles to Mordor because of the giant flying snake dragon monsters ridden by one ring-sensing warrior kings and their half-mile wide aura of fear. This is so sassy, but you know what? That's on me. I should have thought of that. Crap tier ugly ass elf is up there in terms of internet phrases that make me laugh every single time I remember them. The best Lord of the Rings thing I've ever seen is the headcanon that Gimli is like Prince tier of beauty for dwarves and absolutely stunning, and Legolas is like for an elf absolutely butt ugly, like relatively, and everybody's always like, "Gimli, how could you marry such a crap tier ugly ass elf?" And Gimli's like, "Ah, nay, I love him." Arguably the funniest post ever made. Hear me out, a Lord of the Rings game but you play as the ring, throwing yourself wantonly into the path of unsuspecting folk and slowly corrupting their minds as the game progresses. It's a lovely morning in Middle-earth, and you're a horrible ring. Lying in the bottom of a river, press Y to glitter seductively. Frodo's journey is so wild. Like imagine your uncle goes missing after his birthday party, and his old stoner friend from out of town tells you the souvenir that he brought back from a Vegas trip 80 years ago is actually Satan's mood ring, and now zombie assassins are coming to burn down your town unless you and your lawn guy meet up with medieval Hosier in a dark gastropub. This is the funniest synopsis of Lord of the Rings I've ever seen. Frodo, Sam hates Gollum, but that's what I shall become once I've lost myself to the ring. He'll despise me. Sam, if Frodo did turn into a golem. That's a very nice fish that you caught with your bare hands, Mr. Frodo. And it's very smart of you to eat it raw, saving us the trouble of starting a fire. I knitted you a sweater in case you get cold running around in that loincloth of yours. Is the sun hurting your eyes? I'll kill it if it's bothering you. I'll kill the sun. Imagine you're on a road trip with the love of your life and your boyfriend insists that you pick up this messed up little hitchhiker who's like 4 feet tall and looks like he's about to die. Then you hear the hitchhiker conspiring to kill you and your boyfriend and steal your stuff. So then you tell your boyfriend and he's like, "Oh no, he's harmless, you're lying." And basically this messed up Danny DeVito sized slime ball breaks up your relationship and your boyfriend leaves you on the side of the road. That's what happened to Samwise Gamgee. Do you ever lie awake wondering how the hell Gimli knows what a nervous system is? Clearly dwarves have medical knowledge far more advanced than that of the other races. His Majesty Dr. Gimli, son of Gloin, neurosurgeon MD. Gimli trying to explain his studies to Legolas, a flat earther. Scrolls down, remember that Middle-earth is canonically flat for elves and round for everybody else. Scroll back up and smash that reblog button. I will not buy flowers for a girl because flowers are stupid and worthless and they die really fast. Get a girl a rock. Rocks are strong. Rocks don't die after 2 days. Diamond. The word you're looking for is diamond. Diamonds are overpriced and far too common. Hand forge a ring. Etch a script into it. Use it to ensnare the world leaders and take over the world. There are 2 trilogies telling you why that's a bad idea. If there's one thing I'll never understand, it's Lord of the Rings fans wanting to be an elf in Middle-earth. I mean, sure, they're graceful and pretty, but they live too damn long. And having to witness an eternity of stupidity from the species around them. Like imagine being Elrond and witnessing a cringe compilation of the human race. No thank you. I've been witnessing a cringe compilation of the human race my whole life. Elrond is not special. So in the Lord of the Rings appendices, it says that Legolas eventually builds a boat and takes Gimli across the seas into the west, the Grey Havens. You know, the place where Arwen isn't allowed to go because she's in love with a human dude. But Legolas, aka you little just says f it and sneaks Gimli into the goddamn Undying Lands like contraband Twizzlers into a movie theater. The best literary analysis ever. No, this is my dwarf, I'm keeping him. Can tell Merry and Pippin apart? Of course they can. What kind of question is that? Frodo and Sam could not initially tell Merry and Pippin apart, but made an effort to learn their names and can now tell them apart. Aragorn and Boromir, try as he might, cannot consistently tell Merry and Pippin apart. Gimli can absolutely tell Merry and Pippin apart, but pretends not to be able to. Gandalf cannot tell Merry and Pippin apart and not even trying. Legolas, where do Merry and Pippin fall on this spectrum? What do you mean you can't tell us apart? I'm much taller. Merry. I'm Merry. Pippin. One thing I love about Tolkien is that he's 100% realistic about people's physical capabilities. Like Legolas is the only one in the Fellowship able to do anything slightly out of the ordinary. The Fellowship reaches a 7-foot chasm and they're like, damn, I guess we're trapped here then. Legolas walks a tightrope across the Nimrodel and the others are like, absolutely not. Frodo and Sam spend half an hour figuring out how to get down a cliff. They climb up the first flight of stairs at Cirith Ungol and they're sweating and have to take a nap. No superheroes here. Actually, I love that Tolkien decided to include Tom Bombadil. What an amazingly unhinged decision. Literally 5 minutes out of the Shire, Merry and Pippin almost get eaten by a sentient evil willow tree, but there's just some guy who's in charge of the trees and tells it to let them out. He's older than elves and the river is his wife. He's also immune to the ring, the thing that the preceding 120 pages and following 800 pages are entirely about, and he literally never shows up again. Everybody's like, oh, he's a god. And Tolkien was like, no, he's not God. He's just a guy, and I don't know what he's doing there either. He just wants to be. That's incredible. No notes. Never date anybody who can't sit through a marathon of the Lord of the Rings extended editions. You don't need that kind of weakness in your life. My first thought was my dad bringing home the extended edition box set, and my mum immediately asking, they made those things even longer, and then they got divorced. Is there a Lord of the Rings or Hobbit fanfic out there where Tolkien gets sucked into his own books and has a grand old time? Yeah, Tom Bombadil. It's canon. Wait, what? What? A different theory is that Tom Bombadil is in fact a representation of Tolkien himself. He's eldest because he existed before the books. He saw the first raindrops because he wrote it, thus seeing it. He's immune to the powers of the ring, yet seems to have enough power to save the world all by himself. Yet he does not because he wrote it all down, and knows what's going to happen and chooses not to interfere for the sake of the readers. Guys, question for the class. Lord of the Rings is rated PG-13, and as such is allowed one F-bomb. Where would you put it? Alright then, your secrets. I never thought I'd die fighting side by side with a elf. I've got no memory of this place. One does not simply walk into Mordor. They have a cave troll. All great suggestions. If by my life or death I can protect you, I will. You have my sword, and you have my bow, and my axe. This post gets better every time I see it. My favorite thing about hobbits is how no other race has any idea how they work, so they can sort of BS their way through anything. Bilbo turns invisible and the dwarves go, yeah, sounds about right. Gandalf did say they're very sneaky. And don't guess about the ring. Frodo gets stabbed by a troll spear and survives unharmed. And Aragorn goes, oh right, hobbits are supposed to be resilient. That checks out. Very impressive. And nobody thinks to ask if he's got perhaps some kind of armor. I need to know where the line is. How weird does a hobbit need to get before they get called out? A thing that will forever amuse me is the movie fandom's depiction of the relationship between Gandalf and Pippin. Like, haha, old man is annoyed by younger man is funny on its own. But what most of them don't know is Gandalf is an entity, an angelic being taking up human form who's older than time itself. Pippin, I exist despite God talk, is like 17 or whatever. This is a teenager constantly f***ing up an ancient being. Pippin is the biggest minor inconvenience in the life of Gandalf. Gandalf taking a hit from his joint. Did you guys know that mithril is super expensive? Like insanely valuable. That it's very much a finite resource mainly plundered from the earth and invaluable due to its many uses. And also Sauron has most of it, so now it's lost to its elfin and dwarvish makers. And to think that Bilbo's precious gift of mithril mail is probably sitting in the local useless dumb artifacts museum. It just makes you think. Gimli, a dwarf who's lost most of his people's cultural artifacts. I'm sorry, Bilbo was given what? And did what with it? Frodo secretly wearing Bilbo's mithril mail at that very moment, but only after nearly 70 years of sitting in the useless dumb artifacts museum, gathering dust because Bilbo had no idea that his cool shirt was worth approximately the net value of their entire country. My boyfriend has to go to the Ren Fair for work, but I can come with him, and he wanted to do a matching costume. He said, I want to be Frodo, and I said, oh cool, I can be Shelob, which was apparently not the couple's costume that he was thinking of. I was like, babe, she has the most screen time of any woman in The Return of the King, and my boyfriend was like, that cannot be true. Looked it up and then said, I can't believe that's true. Finally, a strong female character who doesn't shave her legs. If Lord of the Rings was an inch closer to Jane Austen, it'd simply be a pining love story about a gardener and a nobleman's son. Isn't that like what half of the Two Towers is? Sam pining over Frodo while they try to sleep. The evil ring is magic blocking the class love story of people who'd rather be having tea together somewhere. This post is very funny already, but it made me wonder what would happen if you introduced an evil magic ring into Pride and Prejudice, and that's hilarious. A man of good fortune has recently come to town, and he's only rumored to be a Dark Lord. Lizzie, you have to meet him immediately. Tolkien, this character is Fëanor, which in my language means spirit of fire, which gets at his personality, creative spirit, and destructive tendencies. Also Tolkien, this character is Treebeard, because he's a tree with a beard. Tolkien, he's an entire language I created for a race of people, full of history and lore. Also Tolkien, Mount Doom. I don't think any movie will make me feel the same ethereal sense of otherworldly sorrow and disembodied awe as that scene in Lord of the Rings where the loyal son is sent off into a doomed battle just to please his vindictive father while Pippin sings a mourning song of his people. I was like 12 and high off this shit. These movies changed me. A 500-word short story with the same plot as your novel that explores how fast the problem could be solved by Sonic the Hedgehog. Getting to Mount Doom wasn't a problem for Sonic, but much like Frodo, giving up the ring was hard. And this wasn't just some piddly magic effect this time. Sonic's very nature was built around keeping rings. Sobbing, he turned to his trusting friend Knuckles Gamgee. Knuckles, I need you to punch me. The thing about Lord of the Rings that the movies don't convey so fully is how the story is set in an age heavily overshadowed by all the ages before. They're constantly constantly traveling through ruins and discussing the glory of days gone by. The empires of men are much diminished. The elves, especially Galadriel, are described as being incongruent and frozen in time. Some of the imagery is even near apocalyptic, like the ruins of Moria and of course the landscape surrounding Mordor. This is a strange thought to me, somehow, that the archetypal high fantasy story is set at the point where the fantasy used to be much higher. This isn't the Golden Age, it's the Remnant. Lord of the Rings is Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome of the elves. I can't watch The Return of the King without thinking of that bad bootleg one with the messed up subtitles that said, "This will be the end of gender as we know it," instead of "This will be the end of Gondor as we know it. This will be the end of gender as we know it." So true, Gandalf. The more despair I endure in life, the more I love Frodo. I'm just so glad that Tolkien wrote him like that. He was a hero and it broke him. He was given too much to carry. The circumstances were dire, everybody was doing the best that they could, and Frodo tried so hard for such a good cause, and he broke. And the narrative has pity for him. The characters show him kindness. Even after victory, his hurts did not heal, and it isn't considered his fault. He must go to the Undying Lands to seek out peace there. In the universe, he's forgiven for being human. Don't be pedantic. And his great torment is recognized. He fell. He could not have done it alone, and he's still a hero. The Lord of the Rings gets a lot funnier when you realize that Merry and Pippin were stoned out of their minds a good half of the time. Imagine you and your best friend both have the munchies, so you decide to raid the local farmer's field, when you literally run into your two smoking buddies from the Shire, and they tell you that they're hiking to Bree to meet Gandalf, who you know has some top quality hash on him at all times, so you agree to go with them, and then you somehow end up on a 1,000-mile hike to destroy a piece of evil jewelry in a volcano. Congratulations, you're Merry and Pippin now. No one ever talks about Gimli being not even slightly tempted by the ring. He had no hesitation, just walked up with his axe and immediately tried to wreck it. Obviously that didn't work, but like the ring had zero visible effect on him. Amazing. Gold sickness in the line of Durin Whomst, not in Gimli, son of Gloin. He wasn't going to let himself be embarrassed in front of all these elves. Short Kings, don't step outside right now. I saw a hawk flying around. Legolas to the hobbits. Whatever. Go forth, elfin prince of the mountains. He must be a half-elf because elves can't grow beards. Gimli and Legolas's true son. Bless everything about this post. Sonic the Hedgehog, sustained speed of 767 miles per hour, could have made the journey from the Shire to Mount Doom, 1,718 miles, in just over 2 hours, but also he famously loves rings, so he almost assuredly would have found the thrall of the ring far too powerful to resist. Tails would have had to shoot him. Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings isn't a supremely faithful adaptation, but they're all spectacular films. Jackson and his people cared greatly about capturing as best they could the spirit and the atmosphere of Tolkien's work, and I also love them. When so many adaptations are now made by somebody who wants to make their own version and put their stamp on a property, these movies felt like they were made by somebody who loved the property and they wanted to make the best version that they could. And there's a difference. Having a crush as an adult is so embarrassing. I'm too old for this. I should be busy with my blacksmith apprenticeship or something. I think the reason why Tolkien keeps on referring to the bow of Legolas and the voice of Legolas and the arrows of Legolas is that he doesn't want to write Legolases. It's his own fault. He named the character, and you can't even blame the language he got the name from, because he made that one up too. Legolas's cowardly author. The only thing in our new apartment so far. What else do you need? One cardboard Legolas is enough to furnish the apartment of a grown man. J.R.R. Tolkien looking at flowers. Apparently people hated to go for walks with him because he'd stop and look at every tree for like 20 minutes. The Lord of the Rings is great because one moment it's like, war is hell, our world is dying. The fate of everything we hold dear relies on our epic quest. And then the next it's road trip with Gandalf and the boys, let's go! Well, aside from obsession, what downside does the ring have? Gollum lived an incredibly long life, was very strong, fast and agile. Hey, in Middle-earth, is there any ecological consequences for those big eagles? Yeah, goblins and hobbits make their homes underground. A dim and grim fantasy tavern, but the drinks are very colourful and fruity, and they've got little umbrellas and curly straws. Let's not forget the real reason for the season. December 25th is the day the Fellowship departs from Rivendell on their quest to destroy the ring. When does the Fellowship leave Rivendell? December 25. Happy Fellowship Day. Consider this, hobbits aren't used to carrying swords. Initially very unclear on when it's appropriate to whip them out. Merry and Pippin have a disagreement over, I don't know, whether cake or pie is better, and they both draw their swords like, have at thee! Meanwhile, Aragorn in the background is like, boys, please, please, boys, those are sharp. Frodo napping. Boromir, hey Frodo, wake up, we need to talk. Sam, he's having his nap, sir. Boromir, Sam, please, I need to talk to him. Sam draws his sword. He's having his nap, go away! Give it to me! No! Lord of the Rings, a summary. I cannot breathe. Me 14 reading Tolkien. Hobbits are considered children until they're 30. How funky. Fantasy world building. This is so different from us humans. Me, 25. Oh, I get it now. Me, 34. Actually, the hobbits might be rushing things a bit. And then Legolas did a totally sick backflip and decapitated like 15 orcs. It was so sweet. J.R.R. Tolkien, apparently. I suppose it's a testament to Tolkien's economy of language that the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy, interminable preamble and endless appendices and all, has a smaller total page count than the individual books of your average modern doorstep of fantasy series, yet it's able to pack in such a high density of world-building detail that reading it feels like it takes about 1,000 years. For those expressing incredulity at the idea of Tolkien being an economical storyteller, one must understand that the ability to communicate a great deal of information very efficiently is a totally separate skill from the ability to get to the damn point. Yeah, the day I found out the Twilight series has a higher word count, 587,000 words across 4 books, than the Lord of the Rings, 481,000 words across 3 books, was a dark day. Thanks, I wish I didn't know this. It's not the word count that matters, it's the information density. Physically, Twilight might be longer, but it's the letters of fiction. Lord of the Rings is like being hit in the face by a produce truck. I love how Gandalf invested in hobbits in year 1 and has been pushing them ever since. Thorin, I hear you need help with the breaking and entering. Can I recommend one of these little silent as trust me, Elrond, my dude, I know you're skeptical, but these 4 just transported a weapon of mass destruction all the way here. Theoden, you've got to get yourself a hobbit, man. I've got a spare one here. Denethor, you big prick, take a hobbit. Literally, this is the bottom of the range, but listen to him sing. Beautiful little Me looking at the current state of the world crying. I wish none of this had happened. Gandalf materializing in my conscience smiling. So do all who live to see such times. But that's not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that's given to us. There are other forces at work in this world besides the will of people. This is so wonderfully helpful. There's also Sam. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo. The ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't even want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come. And when the sun shines, it'll shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something. Even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had a lot of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept on going because they were holding on to something. What are we holding on to, Sam? There's good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. One of my favorite things about Gandalf is that he full names hobbits when he's angry, like he's their mum or something. Important follow-up questions. Does it frustrate Gandalf that he can't do this to Bilbo and Frodo with the same impact because they don't have nicknames? Number 2, does he do it to non-hobbits? Gandalf in the distance. Aragorn, son of Arathorn. Aragorn, oh I'm in trouble. May I also bring up the scene in the Two Towers where Legolas sees eyes in the woods and starts riding back, and Gandalf calls him back with a "Stay Legolas, Greenleaf." He really does do it to non-hobbits too. He's canonically done it to an elf. I completely forgot that, and thank you for confirming that it's canon. The more sons of he adds, the angrier he is. Legolas, Greenleaf, you sit your ass down and leave those trees alone, or so help me. Bugs Bunny could have simply walked into Mordor. He would have shown up at the gates of Mordor in a disguise and been like, "Evil volcano inspection unit," and flash a fake ID badge to the confused orc. I love the implication here that the One Ring would have little to no effect on Bugs. To be fair, it's canonically established in Lord of the Rings that Tom Bombadil, an inexplicable magic trickster, is unaffected by the ring, and the only reason they don't give the job to him is because Tom Bombadil is a silly little man who's easily distracted and only wants to spend time with his hot wife. Bugs Bunny, on the other hand, loves nothing more than over self-important heads, and is also an inexplicable magical trickster, so he would in fact be perfect for this mission. Originally, Tolkien intended for Eowyn to marry Aragorn. Later, however, he decided against it because Aragorn was too old and lordly and grim. Imagine that. You're Aragorn. You're Isildur's heir. You inspire loyalty wherever you go. All who know you love you. Your people will follow you into the gates of hell. You're a deadly and valiant soldier, yet your hands also have magical healing powers. You save Middle-earth and become a great and beloved king. Your own creator still says that you're not good enough for Eowyn. I think about this one often. Life is very full of sex, or should be. As much as I admire Tolkien, and I do, he was a giant of fantasy and a giant of literature, and I think he wrote a great book that's going to be read for many years. You do have to wonder where all those hobbits come from, since you can't imagine hobbits having sex, can you? Well, sex is an important part of who we are. It drives us, it motivates us, it makes us do sometimes very noble things, and it makes us do sometimes incredibly stupid things. Leave it out and you've got an incomplete world. George R.R. Martin. No disrespect to George R.R. Martin, but this quote cracks me up. Every time I say it, I'm like, no, George, you can't imagine hobbits having sex. Found it, and I say it again. I can imagine hobbits having sex. Georgie boy here forgetting that Sam has 13 kids. He didn't forget about them. He just doesn't understand where they came from. That's even funnier then. George R.R. Martin looking at the Gamgee family tree and crying, where did they all come from? It's amazing how The Fellowship of the Ring, a movie released in 2001, has scenes that are in extreme darkness, like the giant squid fight at the gates of Moria, and I can still easily tell what's going on. It's amazing how Fellowship of the Ring, which once again is from the year 2001, has quiet dialogue scenes and loud action scenes, and yet I don't have to constantly mess with the volume to hear what's being said, and avoid having my ears blown out. And why is that remarkable again? Why does every fantasy series have to have a hot woman-only group, like Sisterhood of Summer Spies, or Ladies of the Twilight Bowl, or Women Warriors of the Waters, and never himbo-only groups like Blue Rose Brotherhood, or Man the Realm, or Bastard Sword Bastards? Their name is the Fellowship of the Ring. You know, it's kind of funny how much of high fantasy centers around kings and nobility and courtly intrigue, considering that the archetypal high fantasy Lord of the Rings had the rather explicit moral of saving the world is up to this backwater hick and this gardener, because no politician, least of all inherited nobility, would have the ability to see past their own ambition and throw away a weapon. Oh sure, Aragorn's a great king and all, but there's a reason he's over there running a distraction ring while the hobbits do the real work. Sauron loses because he gets distracted by kings and armies and great battles, letting Frodo and Sam sneak through his back door and blow it all to hell. Just saying, maybe old Tolkien knew what he was saying when he said that the small folk doing their best and holding to each other was more powerful than a dozen alliances and super weapons, and we should respect him for it. Between the Arkenstone, the One Ring, and the cache of magic swords that Bilbo uncovered during Thorin and Company's confrontation with the Trolls, that just so happened to be the former property of the High King of the Noldor, Bilbo and Gandalf's relationship is just a constant process of Bilbo showing up with some random artifact of world-changing significance, and Gandalf sagely stroking his beard and making a pithy remark while internally screaming, where do you keep finding these things? Alternatively, that's why Gandalf always brings or sends hobbits on adventures, because if you take a hobbit out of their nice safe holding pen in the Shire, it'll take them approximately 10 minutes to stumble across whatever item of world-shaking importance is currently knocking around the vicinity. You take a hobbit out, you set them loose, and they'll find ancient weapons of a godly age, ancient beings that predate the world, the one treasure in the middle of a hoarder treasure that you actually need, the single most deadly magic item in the world in the middle of a river, the same magic item in the middle of a cave centuries after, the local magic rock with a direct link to the current villain's mind, which in this case was not necessarily a blessing, Pippin. If you put a hobbit down and there's an item of plot importance within a 50-mile radius, they'll put their hand down and pick it up, guaranteed. Again, as with Pippin and the Palantir, this is not necessarily a good thing, but at least you'll know where it is. The other reason that he always brings or sends hobbits on adventures is that they'll also kickstart world-shaking action if left unattended for more than 5 minutes. See also Merry and Pippin toppling Isengard the minute they were left alone near people they could trick into war/mischief. Also Bilbo giving Bard and Thranduil the Arkenstone in an attempt to negotiate because the dwarves left him unsupervised, and somebody needed to at least try and keep the peace. Also Pippin suborning a Gondorian guard into outright treason in the place of the dead to save Faramir and the Gondorian stewardship from Denethor's madness. Also Frodo, Sam and Gollum royally messing up Sauron's everything, while entirely alone and unsupervised under his very nose. Taking hobbits out into the wider world and letting them loose unsupervised is not an action for the risk-averse or the faint of heart. But if you want results in a relatively short time frame, by the Valar it's effective. The hobbits in Lord of the Rings every 5 minutes. Our adventure is not like we would have liked it all. It's not fun and exciting like Bilbo's. Bilbo who's been telling the bedtime story version of a story whose tragedy still haunts him. Ha ha ha, yeah, right. Not a single one of them processed that Bilbo changed aspects of his story. The hobbits. Bilbo's adventure was so fun and stress-free. Why can't ours be like that? Gimli, who actually got an accurate recount of the journey from multiple sources. What the f are you kids going on about? How's your shoulder? Better than it was. Mr. Frodo. I'm alright. What is it, Mr. Frodo? Nothing. Here, let's rest a bit. No, I'm alright. Frodo Baggins and not complaining. The person who tagged, I'll fight the entire universe for him. You are the most valid person on the entire website. Things he did not learn from his uncle, part 1. I mean, can you imagine Bilbo takes the ring to Mordor complaining every step of the way? Eventually Sauron's minions start avoiding him. The sheer enraged inconvenience radiating from him drives them off. off. Frodo Baggins is an angel. Anytime I do anything remotely difficult, I suddenly feel as though I'm Frodo Baggins collapsed on Mount Doom. Like I'll be composing an email and suddenly I can't recall the taste of food, nor the sound of water, and there's a giant flaming eyeball hindering my vision. And I don't have my gardener's big strong arms to gently cradle me. But something happened then that the ring did not intend. It was picked up by the most unlikely creature imaginable. A hobbit. The same thing that had just had it for like 500 years. The ring. If I had a quarter for every time a hobbit picked me up, I'd have 2 quarters, which isn't a lot, but it is weird that it happened twice. Of all the bearers of Sauron's ring, 4 of them were hobbits. I was wrong, it's 5, not 4. The lineage of ring bearers. Number 1, Sauron. Number 2, Isildur. Number 3, Deagle. And then Smeagol. And then Bilbo and Frodo. And then Samwise. I love how Deagle counts as a ring bearer even though he had it in his possession for like 5 seconds. He held it for the rest of his life. From the ring's perspective. Number 1, home, the finger of my creator and other self. Isildur. Well, I don't like it, but I can work with this. Cause some trouble and get some revenge and find my way home. That's fine. Deagle. What the is you? Smeagol. Right personality, but wrong species. I don't know what you are, but I hate you. And I don't know why you're so resistant to my powers. Bilbo. No, there are goblins everywhere. How did I find another one of these horrible things? This one's even more resistant than the last one. And also disgustingly nice. I suffer. Frodo. Listen, I'll cooperate, just get me the out of this hellhole full of small, cheerful people. My power does not work on them properly. No, not like that. I hate you. Please stop. Samwise. Frodo again. I still hate you with every last molecule of my mortal form, but at least you're not number 7. I think I'm starting to get through finally. Smeagol again. Yes, it's you. I actually missed you. Now get me back to the master. And no, I hate you! We make fun of Thorin getting lost in the Shire, but you know the Nazgul also had to keep asking for directions to find Bag End? So maybe Hobbit city planning is just whack. The Hobbits spent generations making their roads complex as to keep Gandalf out. Theory accepted. Which is why they're always so sulky when he shows up. Oh, you found your way back. How nice. Which is also why Gandalf is always late. But of course, this is the absolute least successful way to keep Gandalf of all people out. Because number 1, it's a challenge. And number 2, that won't potentially kill him. Which is in really short supply lately. So while the Hobbits think they're being hostile, what they're actually saying in Gandalf speak is please come back, we love you. The depictions of Aragorn as an unwashed, dirt-eating, off-the-grid backpacker become much better when you realize that he was raised by Elrond. By all accounts, the most civilized, refined, and genteel person on the known continent. The Hobbits had just gotten used to seeing him eat uncooked rabbit, and suddenly, he's sitting at Elrond's table speaking 3 kinds of Elvish and using the correct fork for every dish. I love that man. During Boromir's death scene in the Fellowship of the Ring film, you can hear a choir in the soundtrack. The choir isn't singing random vowel sounds, they're actually singing in Elvish. The English translation of the lyrics? It's a line from the books. I do not love the sword for its sharpness, nor the arrow for its swiftness, nor the warrior for his glory. I love only what they defend. For bonus hurt points in the book, the lines were said by his little brother Faramir. In The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien writes of Legolas, he could sleep, if sleep it could be called by men, resting his mind in the strange parts of Elvish dreams, even as he walked open-eyed in the light of this world. I therefore suggest the following hypothesis. Elves can sleep 1/2 of their brains at a time like marine mammals. They therefore seem to be half asleep, but they can continue to do a habitual task. In dolphins, for instance, continuing to swim and to go to the surface periodically to breathe. Number 2, not being familiar with marine mammal behavior while sleeping, I posit that elves that are chasing prey, like Legolas chasing the Uruk-hai in the passage above, will unconsciously follow the one member of their party that's taking their turn at being awake and consciously tracking their quarry. They might walk as in they're in a hypnotic trance. That could lead to absolutely hilarious shenanigans. Number 3, elves are therefore the most fearsome pursuit predators in nature, because even humans have to sleep sometime.